Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Enlightenment webcast live. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube as we speak. We have an amazing discussion today. But first, I'm going to introduce the panel. We have Cindy Orlando Johnson, we have Antoinette Love, and we have Naomi Elliott that goes by Namz. How y'all doing today?
Peace. We're good.
Hey, how you doing?
Good deal. So, Naomi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, hi, my name is Naomi, also known as Namz Ebonae. I am a singer, artist, producer, spoken word artist, rapper, everything. I also deal with female empowerment and black empowerment all around. Sorry, my dish is going a bit loose. That's mainly what I do. But my heart is always for the people. I've come from a very interesting background, a very religious background. And a lot of people did know me as a quote unquote gospel artist. So my transition to where I am now is very interesting, to where I can kind of bridge the gap between a lot of people who have left religion and trying to find something a bit deeper, but not in the constraints of religion, if that makes sense. And so that's where I kind of resonate with people the most, kind of thing, on that kind of frequency. Because anyone who knows me, I do not do anything to do with religion or boxes or systems or any of that. I'm kind of a rebel at heart, so that's kind of a bit about me, really.
Good deal. So, Orlando, I'm gonna let you go ahead and start everything off.
Okay,
while I
cool.
take care of this broadcast and interruption.
Okay, cool. First of all, welcome everybody to the Enlightenment Podcast again for the second time, and we are going to get this thing kicked off. I just want to say thank you to everybody that jumped in live, and thanks to everybody that shared the commercial / highlight that we put together for you guys to make this a very fun experience and a more appealing experience for everybody to be able to enjoy and to gain information. So as Kenshu said earlier, we have Miss Namz Ebonae on with us all the way from the UK, representing all the artists out there. She's a great artist, a great spirited person. Actually, we had an opportunity to talk a little bit, and we also have with us Miss Antoinette. Everyone's seen her before. She's a very familiar face on the live stream podcast, and I'm excited to have both of these melanated queens on with us today. So I saw a video that Miss Namz sent to us that was just, it blew my mind. First of all, I was like, wow, this girl she's dope. Like, it's no all that queen and goddess. Like, no, this girl is just dope. Like, yo, when Ken sent it to me, I was like, man, I'm excited to have this girl on. Like, I can't wait to just hear what she has to say. I'm talking about from spirituality to astrology, numerology. I mean, she kind of gets into it all, and that's something that we do here on the Enlightenment Podcast. We delve into the deeper meaning of things. So, Miss Namz, I said earlier that you mentioned a few things. I want to start at the top. I don't want to go all the way to the end because it'll ruin everything. So, without me continuing to talk, let's get into the video. So, tell us a little bit about what got you started on this particular journey. Where you are today. I'm pretty sure we all know that Frequencies deals with music, and so therefore you're an artist. So like all of this stuff kind of ties in together. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I think it mainly started with my, as I said, I've come from quite a religious background. I was a Christian. I was, and I wasn't just one of those Christians, quote unquote Christians, I actually was like, I'm trying to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then I realized it really wasn't possible. And I, the kind of, I would read the Bible, I would try and live my life by the Bible, but I realized that the systems were, it, there's only so far I could understand if I only just read it by what I've been taught and just what I see. And so I kind of shut off, kind of long story short, I shut off for about, my journey has been for like the last 6 years, so to speak. And it started off with, I guess, very strong spiritual encounters. And the only way I could define it was from a Christian perspective, because that's all I knew. So as I kind of started to grow, I understood that a lot of these kind of experiences weren't just experienced in a church or a building or with other people. And I thought, okay, there must be something deeper to this, to where I can actually experience more powerful encounters in my own house and not have to be in a system that was created to do that.
Right.
And it just started to kind of question. And then it got to a point where I started to kind of study the psychology of people within religious systems, and how easily we can just gravitate to something that we've been taught and not question it. That really irritates me, because it's like, okay, you're seeing all these people go into church and they're listening to something that the pastor is saying constantly, but no one's going home to check whether what he's saying is actually correct, because it sounds good. He was able to intellectually masturbate into a place.
That was good. That was really good.
Right? and it's literally emotional abuse, but we allow it to happen. And I got to a place where I was like, okay, I need to shut all of this off. I don't want no one to speak to me. I don't want no one's influences. I don't want no one's opinions. I don't want nothing. I want to go and study for myself. And I need to be able, if I cannot understand my reality through my own eyes, then I don't know my reality. I know someone else's interpretation of my reality. And I was determined that that wasn't going to be the case anymore, because if I say I have a divine connection with Source, it's my interpretation for myself. I should be able to come up with something completely fresh that nobody has, because we will all kind of have the same thing, but I should be able to have something fresh for myself that has not been fed to me by someone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
intimate, something personal and intimate.
Exactly. And so I think that was my major kind of thing, because my journey was very accelerated. I went from religion and into the so-called, wasn't even in the conscious community, I just like to call it quote unquote conscious community. Right. I wasn't in that for long, because again I saw that all it was is just a duplicated system with Africa in it. And I don't understand what is the liberation in that if we're still holding ourselves to systems that wasn't even created by us, or trying to attach ourselves to systems that were created how many yonks ago, but we don't really fully know the essence of.
Right, that's true.
I mean, you can talk about Kemet, but Kemet is the most compromised place on this planet. So
it is.
How can your definition, or how can your complete definition of reality be based on Kemet, to which it's so compromised?
It is. It truly is.
And it becomes another religion all over again. It becomes religion and nobody becomes liberated. And I mean, the live stream last week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all good in teaching us about being able to eat good and whatever, but if that is all you can get to for you to say that you can ascend, I mean, there has to be something more than that. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience, not the other way around. So then there has to be that balance. There has to be that balance.
I
And,
I agree 110% what you're saying. One of the things that I've collected over my brief, like yourself, I was kind of accelerated. I jumped into the conscious community. I started looking at some of those guys, and I'm thankful for the boost that they supply. But then once you begin to expand, you expand at an accelerated rate. I don't like to consider me to be higher or lower than anyone, but I just vibrate on a different frequency than they do. They have their path, I have mine. Although we're trying to get to one single destination, it's just that we all have our different vibrations or frequencies, or the way we think, or ideologies about what we're seeing. Like you say, we can look at Kemet as a way or a springing point to get us where we are, but at the same time, you can't allow that springing point to turn back into religion again. That's the danger. And one of the things that I always wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing was I didn't want to leave one form of religion and go into another form of religion, because then I never really evolved. I only transformed. I didn't evolve mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. I mean, nothing really changed. So with that being said, let's get in a little bit of that really quick. How do you feel about a lot of this, what they call this conscious community stuff? I mean, we have a lot of people saying, hey, the Mental Nectar is not translated. It is translated. We have a lot going on right now, right? Amongst the quote unquote conscious community, if you want to call it, or aware community, or so tell me about that. What are your thoughts on that, being in the UK?
yeah, so my thoughts is I'm going to deal with it from two levels. Now, both of them still equate to, I still don't believe that any of this has been deciphered. I don't understand how, if you cannot provide me primary sources, I don't understand how we can even discuss a major lecture ever being deciphered in the first place. But on the next level, our ancestors never created these systems for us to just look back and romanticize about it. These were symbols for us to learn to evolve to a certain level and understand it for ourselves. Because if we look at it, our minds are so backwards. And this is what I mean about before we even think about deciphering everything, we need to fix our minds, because we're on the perception that speech is the only form of communication.
That's right.
That's not the only form of communication. You have telepathy, you have telekinesis. Those were what they were using at that time, but because we're vibrating on a completely different frequency, we only think, the only way that I can communicate with you is through verbal speech. That's not the fullness of everything. We have the ability to communicate without speech. So they created these systems for us to learn how to understand it on a completely different field. We're going there. We're not there yet. So a lot of what we think that we've deciphered and we've understood, we're gonna have to check, because number one, I don't understand how we can have this definitive conclusion on history, or our story as we like to say, if the majority of it is locked in the Vatican.
Yeah.
The majority of it is locked in the Vatican. So what do we actually know? What they've allowed us to know, do we know that if that's even the fullness of the truth?
It's funny that you mentioned that. And just a side note real quick. Me and my wife was watching TV last night, right? And she was like, "You like all that deep stuff? I got a movie for you." And she turned on the Da Vinci Code. And I was like, I've heard of the movie, but I actually never watched it. I know everybody's seen Da Vinci Code. I know I'm late. But I watched it for the first time, and it is full of so much. If you're enlightened to the information, you're just like, well, first of all, who all seen the Da Vinci Code? I may not be alone on this. Yeah, y'all never said. Yeah, y'all need to go watch that movie. Cause what you're saying, no, I'm gonna tell you, it's funny that you're saying. See, that's how divine energy works, right? So I watched this movie last night, literally. And within the movie, it was just saying how, you know, in the Vatican, they actually have information about, you know, Yeshua actually being married and having a daughter, and, you know, and all this kind of stuff, and how a lot of information, you know, it's so much information that has been put out there that's not truthful about, you know, spirituality. And, you know, you'll see all the symbolisms for Kemet and symbolism for, you know, Thailand or China, you know, and, you know, their customs, and, you know, the and Hindu. So it's all sorts of symbolism in that movie. But I just wanted to throw that in there because I thought it was funny that you're talking about this right now, and how I saw that, you know, in that movie they talked about how, you know, the Vatican is hiding so much information. But continue. I'm sorry, y'all.
No, that's what I'm saying. What do we know? What do we actually know? Even the language in which we're talking, we're saying some words from the Medunecha. I mean, it's got vowels in it. So are we still not talking English? The moment you have a vowel in your word, that is Latin. So you're speaking English. It's not African languages that you're even speaking. So all of this that we think that we know, and we think that we're speaking, and we're getting back to our culture, we don't know what we're doing. We actually do not know. We have no idea. And so now is a time where it's like, okay, stop trying to figure out that which we're never going to be able to figure out, because that's not what our ancestors built for. Our ancestors built so that we can start duplicating the works that they did using the symbols. It was never words, it was symbols. And how easy I've been learning in the last, especially the last few weeks, whilst all this whole kind of Medinetra debate's been going on, really looking at the essence of symbols and understanding how you can actually break down the science of symbols, even letters, numbers. Is not just a number, they are symbols. And the moment you tap into understanding that this is not a number, this is not a letter, it's not just the Monday, you can actually dig out sciences just by digging a bit deeper into what you're looking at. Because we're taught just to look at things on the mundane level. For example, you look at a glass of water, you can look at the surface of the water, and you can choose to look a bit deeper and really look and see little bubbles and stuff in the essence of the water. Yeah. That is spirituality. Really taking yourself beyond the boundaries of what you've been set, and really trying to understand the essence of everything. So I even asked this question. I put this question up the other day. I done it from a Christian perspective, and the reason why I'm doing this is because what we need to understand is that religion is the only thing that's dividing us. Let's try and find a common ground to where we can communicate. We're all messed up. We don't know what the hell's going on right now. So if I use a Christian perspective to define something, don't shoot me down and be like, oh, she's into religion. We just have to use what we've got right now to explain what we've got, because we're all messed up. Yeah. So I use this example. If God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, then what is the middle? What is in between? And that should be our quest, because we know what's the beginning. We may know what's the end, but no one knows what's in between, because no one's really digging to see what those mysteries are. You're so caught up with just what we've been shown in this third dimensional realm out of how many dimensions of light.
That's true. So saying that, I was talking to some people earlier this week, right? And I have a lot of different types of ideologies down my timeline, and I do that on purpose because I like to look at both sides of the picture here. I don't just like to look from one perspective. I like to look at everyone's perspective and see, where it is they're coming from. So I was talking to someone, and we got into this conversation about Jesus, and and I was saying, well, Jesus never called himself a Christian. And then they go on to say, well, the name is not important. And I said, okay, so if I strip your name from you, I then strip your location, your ID, your identity, and everything that you stood for, and give you a new name. So everything that you actually taught is lost because it's in your name. The value of a name is very important. And then I went on to ask him, I said, well, did Jesus talk about single eye? Did he talk about singling your eye? Did he talk about going within yourself? What did he say the kingdom was? Did he say the kingdom was over there, or did he say it was within you? So, I mean, we have to think about all this kind of stuff. And it was one I read, I can't remember which, I think it's somewhere in Matthew, but he asked him a specific question, and I'm not talking about Matthew 6, 20, I think, 23 or 34 or something like that, where it's down, I be single, your whole body shall be full of light. Not even that one. But the one that got me was, because I tell everyone this, I said, when you say you believe in Jesus Christ, you have to ask yourself, which one are you believing in? Because they're two different things. Jesus achieved the Christ ascension. How do I know that for a fact? How can I prove that? It's in the Bible where he asked him, he said, I think he asked him, he said, who is Christ's father? He asked him, who was Christ's father? And they said the son of, who's the Christ the son of? And they said the son of David. And he said, well, how can Christ be the son of David if he's his Lord? Yeah. But it's funny because he said Christ and not me. So he disassociated himself because he wanted to realize that Christ had to be the son of God. I am the son of man. So it's two different entities within themselves. But that's a whole nother dialogue. But yeah, so
there's another scripture just because it ties into this whole thing. I think it's in Matthew 24 or 25 where he's talking, and this is where you have to read things in its correct perspective and not from how you've been taught.
Not literal.
That's how you understand the essence of what's being taught. In either Matthew 24 or 25, it's where Jesus is talking to his disciples. He's not talking to us, the audience. He's talking to his disciples. Right. And he's saying, if anybody tells you, I am Christ, he is deceiving you. So they already know he's Jesus. He's not the Christ. Christ is just a title. He separated the two entities. And he's trying to say, I'm not a part of this system that they are trying to attach me to. I'm not a part of that. So we get caught because we're not taught how to think. We're taught what to think. And so a lot of us don't even clock that's even in the scripture, or is even in that context. Because we've been taught, okay, if I, Naomi, say I am Christ, then I'm the one who's deceiving you.
This is very true. And it's funny whenever you because I've talked to some people that was like, well, he was just saying the people, he wasn't actually saying, him himself. Because the funny thing, the way the Bible is written kind of to set you up that way, to kind of put you on this deceiving end if you're not enlightened. So those who read it from a perspective of literalism, they're going to take everything literal. They're going to cause wars. They're going to cause hatred and division. And then those who take it spiritual are the ones who kind of can see what's going on. But according to the literalists, they're always out of context. They're always out of context. They're not putting things in their proper perspective. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter because it's written for the way we're perceiving it now. What we call the Great Awakening, they call the Great Falling Away. So however you try to spin it, it's written until you're ready to completely let go of religion, not God. Until you're ready to let go of religion, then it will constantly be difficult for you to have a dialogue with anyone that's on a different level of thought. And you find I find that a lot of Christians find this language very interesting, or anybody of religious background. They find it interesting, but they just can't talk to you because you're not a literalist, or you're not, taking it like, heaven or hell, and it's so scientific. It talks about the 666 and, how we have carbon-12 and it makes up, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. So you, in essence, are the aspects of Satan and the aspects of God, in which you have to choose which aspects you're going to live out. God is both. He said he created good and evil. He created both. He created Satan. I mean, come on. These are just a few interesting topics that we really have to tackle, you know. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Antoinette, do you have any questions for
I
her?
just want her to kind of speak a little bit about the video that she made when she was referencing 2016 and 2017 and some of the things that she was alluding to in the video.
Yeah. So I did a video 2 days before the end of the year, which was when the whole conscious community was just all over the place, with the whole kind of Umar Johnson, Vera Allah, and Sarah Seaton Seti. Now, I was breaking down the astrological kind of what was happening astrologically.
Mention that briefly again, please.
Yeah, so we would just the month of December is just I can't remember exactly what date it is, but it was quite early on. We come into the season of Capricorn. Capricorn is symbolic of karma. That which has been sown will then be reaped. That's what kind of Saturn does. That's the planet that rules Capricorn. Now, Seti, he's a Capricorn. Bear that in mind. He's a Capricorn. Pharaoh Allah, he is a Virgo. Now, in that time from I think December, again we was in a Mercury retrograde. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Now what happens in a Mercury retrograde is that the planets appear to be moving backwards. So what happens in that time frame, everything just goes into chaos. It rules communication, so everything is just backwards. We're having arguments, miscommunication. It doesn't even take that much to kind of trigger someone in a Mercury retrograde. There's problems with travel, electronics, everything's just chaos, because it's causing you to look inside yourself. It's a time where you shouldn't really be talking. It's a time when you should be going into yourself. And Capricorn is the end of the year. It's a time where you're setting your plans for your next year. That's what that season is supposed to be. So Pharaoh Allah, he is a Virgo ruled by Mercury. A lot of the tension was centered around them. And Pharaoh, a lot of his talking got him in trouble. Got him in a lot of trouble because of that Mercury retrograde. Seti, he didn't even need to do much. Anything that crashed into him fell because he was operating under that energy of karma. So anything that crashed into him will just naturally fall, which is why Umar Johnson, who is a Leo, which is representative of the ego, he had to fall. It didn't even take that much. He just went on live stream and then boom, the whole conscious community was like, I don't mess with Umar Johnson anymore. Because the planets was in that place where he should have just kept his skin quiet. And there's another example of where this is happening in the church community right now. I don't know if you know of Kim Burrell.
Yeah.
She made some comments about the gay community, and now literally her whole career is just crumbling. She is a Virgo. When you speak in the time of Capricorn, you mess everything up. So it's really important to understand what is happening astrologically, because if you pay attention to that, you know when to speak, when to act, when to sow, when you expect a harvest. You operate in season and not out of season because you know what is happening. And so what I was saying is that we need to not be distracted by what is happening on this third dimension, because the universe is naturally doing a purge. Because also what I was saying is about going into numerology. The number 9 is to do with transitions and beginnings and endings. And And that was what 2016 was. A lot of things got ended, a lot of new beginnings happened, a lot of relationships got crushed down, a lot of systems got exposed.
A lot.
Systems on every scale, not just in a religious scale, or what systems, full stop. Because the universe is saying there's an end to that. The 2017 in Chinese astrology is the year of the phoenix. So with the energy of the phoenix, everything has to burn for it to then rise out of the ashes. That's what is happening right now. The whole conscious community is crushed. The church is crushed. Everyone is being caused to question what is truth.
It's like a purge.
Exact. And what makes it even more interesting is that the winter solstice that we've just left, from the 21st to the 25th of December, is exactly the same dimensional shift that was happening in 2012.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can feel it,
Yeah.
but there's been a major shift, and so there's going to be a lot more people that is about to come on this journey now because of that gateway that was opened. They're now starting to question. The system is falling. It's going to fall naturally because no one's going to be there anymore. No one is going to be there anymore, and you will continue to see it throughout the course of the year. Churches are going. Even I saw a video. There's a very prominent church in the UK where they've got squatters on their property, and the police were just standing there watching them vandalize the property, bringing trash carts into the property, and they just could stand there and not do anything. And what's funny is that a lot of these churches are actually, some of them are prophetic. They are in sync with source. So their messages are saying stuff like it's time for the advancement of the kingdom. But what they don't understand is that
what that looks like.
But it doesn't happen in the four walls of the building.
Yeah, they don't. That's good that you say that, because it's a lot of people that are like you say, in the church. They may have this prophetic gift from the divine creator, and they say, hey, it's time for us to advance or to go higher in the Lord, as they say, but they don't know what that looks like. They think it's just a continuation of what they've been doing, and the same old, this formality thing. But it doesn't look like that. It's people out here that's beginning to really delve into more information and more knowledge, and they're starting to ask more questions, that a lot of these, evangelical, charismatic, preachers, they aren't able to answer unless it's with a feel-good, emotional, crying and just getting people into their emotions, and they feel like that's a move. That's just emotions. The spirit is truth. and truth is what it is. It is no more and no less. It's truth. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I really am. But
even in itself, because I brought this up on the video as well, and I think this is what the problem is. If you look at the elders and a lot of the millennials, it's a completely different energy.
Yeah.
The elders, they operate on this system that was very clearly predicated in slavery. Control, oppression, do things by the book. You must do it like this. If not, you must be punished. Kim Burrell is demonstrating this right now. Any gays must be, you will go to hell, and this is the word of God, so I have the right to say this. That's the kind of energy that they possess. The conscious community has the same thing. If you don't eat this, if you don't eat that, then you're not conscious. They have these little reigns, but what they need to understand is that there is a whole completely new generation of youth that are sick of dogma, because you're doing rituals without even understanding what you're doing. It's senseless just because it feels comfortable. and you're not caused to question. And there's a new the youth. What I even understand it myself. When I came into my journey, I didn't, for me to come out of Christianity, because a lot of people still think, oh, okay, even though she's intellect, like they kind of lead it to intellect that led me out of church. It was intellect that led me out of church, but it was actually a very spiritual journey in itself, where I felt like I couldn't be there anymore. So it's like, and then a lot of revelation started to happen within my own self. And then when I started to study, I realized, wow, I'm actually on point. This is just the clarification of what I'm getting inside. And that's the energy that these millennials are coming with. They've already got the revelation inside of them. What they don't have is the wisdom. And this is where the balance needs to come in the community, because the elders are like, oh no, it has to be like this. But there's something in these. If you listen to a lot of these kids that are coming up, the stuff that is coming out of their mouths, these little indigo children, like the stuff that they are coming out with is just beyond me. I just have to stop and just listen, and they teaching me, because they are coming into this realm with this knowledge that erases this whole system that we've been under for how many years. Time is gone for that. So now we're in the age of Aquarius. We'll probably be in what, 20, I can't remember exactly what date we'll be in, but we're transitioning, and so as we're transitioning, our understandings are growing. So what I was saying earlier about not making not being able to say, okay, we definitively know everything right now. Like we will start to understand very quickly over these next 2 years.
Yeah.
As we kind of go into this age, because that's what it's supposed to do. Like I don't know if you felt this weird shift.
Oh yeah.
It's last month.
Yeah. It's definitely a shift.
It's been very crazy.
Yeah, and and I would say that it's. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was just gonna piggyback off what you said about the shift. It's definitely a shift, and it's a scary one. It's a scary one for a lot of people because like I said, you look at the way the Bible is written, and you look at how a lot of people are beginning to kind of wake up. I mean, for those of us who understand all of the lies and the trickery, like for example, I'll give you one simple example. You look at in the Old Testament, it talks about slavery. It talks about bringing people in over on ships and different things like that. And what they don't realize is in 1611, slavery had already happened. So it's easy for you to go through slavery if they already happened and just write it in there. But because we're so blinded and the scales are not ripped off of our eyes, we don't realize that was written in there after it happened. But yeah, let's kind of use some common sense. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with you 110%. And I wanted to talk about I don't know if you talked about this. I'm getting it confused. I know we talked before we started the podcast, and now I'm where we are. You mentioned the rockets. Was that something you mentioned before the podcast, or something?
That was what was in my video.
Yes.
Because I had a vision. I'll tell you the prelude to the vision, because I had it all makes sense as to how I got this vision. So
okay.
The 3 years ago, I this is when my spiritual kind of gifts were just starting to kind of get awakened, and it came with a force, but I didn't understand a lot of the messages I was getting into. So I understood that there was something called a pole shift that was happening. They call it global warming for tax purposes, but it's actually a pole shift where the north and the south poles completely switch directions. Now the reason why that happens, when that happens, the whole earth does a cleanse. Number one, everything shifts, but also the equator moves, and the purpose of the equator is to determine what land rises and what land falls. So in the natural, so in the spiritual. So as that is it taking place, I had that vision, and I knew that there was going to be a shift, in terms of, I knew that that equator was the elders and the youth, certain battons that needed to be passed over and that weren't passed over because they were trying to hold on to the power. The equator's going to move, so there's certain land that is going to rise and certain land that is going to fall very abruptly, and you're seeing that right now. So I then, at the beginning of 2016, I had a vision that, and this was the most prominent vision I've ever had. I had loads, but this one actually felt like it was real. And I saw a rocket come from over my head, and it hit a church building. And I saw a line of people kind of coming out of it, and they kind of looked back like, oh, that's why we had to get out. And I understood that wasn't only, even though it showed me a church, I understood why I had to see a church at that time because of where I was. But it wasn't only representative of a church, because a lot of systems have come out of the church. So it is symbolic of every system of Babylon that has been created, falling. Rome,
Yeah.
all of these places, they are going to fall because it has to be hit from the root.
Yeah.
It has to be hit for the root for there to be any impact. So as I saw that, I saw it at the beginning of the year, and then I was reminded of it in December. I had it back again, and this was literally a few days before this whole Umar Seti Pharaoh Alel thing was kind of taking place. So I knew something was about to happen again. I just didn't know to what level, to what scale. I just knew I needed to be prepared. And the astrological alignments were saying exactly the same thing. So I was just like, okay, I need to just go and get my team and just watch and see what is happening, because the universe is speaking. And what is so interesting is that the universe is speaking no matter what religion you are. People are getting the same message.
They are.
But they don't even comprehend the messages that they're getting. I spoke to a Muslim guy a couple months ago, and what they were saying is that they know that the Quran will only be taught for 1,500 years, which is equating to now. Everything is always, the Bible is equating to 2,000 years, and now everything's equating to now. So I asked him, I was like, okay, if the Quran will only be taught for 1,500 years, what will happen after that? What will be taught after? What will be the belief system after that? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, could that literally just be the destruction of religion? Because you don't actually need it. I believe that religion has played some positive parts in terms of being able to bring principle to people's lives, and discipline, because that's definitely what it gave me. However, it traps you on this dimension. It can, let me rephrase it, because I was still one of those crazy spiritual new age Christians. So I understood some of the esoteric principles of Christianity, but I understood that the literal doctrine was binding me, because I knew that it was deeper than that. Jesus kept talking about these mysteries. What are these mysteries? I want to know these mysteries. Because it's only in that I will understand the essence of what he's actually talking about. He taught in parables, not in plain speech. He taught in parables for a reason. And so we as a people, we need to understand that this is how our ancestors taught. They taught in parables. So we cannot make, until you really dig into yourself and really connect with your ancestry in yourself and connect what what our ancestors were actually speaking about at those times, and we don't know. There's nothing written that we can refer back to and say, yes, this is it. It's all a mess. So this is what I was saying about, we just need to reset, like go with the universe. Just like the wind, when the wind moves, like you just have to move with the wind. When the wind moves, you have to move with the wind, because everything will get wiped out.
Now, how do you feel about this is my last question, then I'll pass it over to Ken. Now, staying on that path, you said that we have to move with the universe, we have to move with the wind. And some people find that very difficult because they don't tie God into the universe. It's strange. It's strange language. If you say we have to move with God, then they say, oh, amen. But if you say we have to move with the universe, it's like, what is that? I don't know that. I don't know what that is. Not realizing that God created the universe. Not realizing that God is a spirit. Latin word for spirit is breath, literally energy.
But let's go a little bit deeper.
Let's go deeper.
I've been kind of busy, but now I'm about to get
I've been busy too. Going back and forth, man. I'm sorry, you guys.
So let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, so what do we think the universe is?
What is the universe? The universe
What is the universe?
See, I always say this. For me to answer, I can never answer this question on a third dimensional realm, because there's so many layers to. For example, I'll give you an example. If I'm speaking to you, if I get a revelation of something, my mind will be buzzing off so much information that will be like, oh my gosh, I fully got it. But for me to communicate that on a third dimensional state, it limits the fullness of what the essence is. So what I can say is that the universe is everything existing together, happening simultaneously at the same time. But for you to understand the essence of that, will we even